Have you ever stopped to think about how much of our world today, our laws, our languages, even the way we build our cities, was shaped by one single city that grew into an absolutely massive empire? Well, today we're diving deep into the Roman Empire to figure out the secrets behind its incredible, long-lasting power.
I mean, just take a look at this map. At its peak, Rome's territory stretched across 3 continents. We're talking Europe, North Africa, and into Asia. And the Mediterranean Sea, it was basically their private lake. They even called it Mare Nostrum, which literally means our sea. So that's the big question, right? How on earth did one city manage to control this enormous, diverse territory with all these different cultures and peoples for hundreds and hundreds of years? What was their secret sauce? All right, here's how we're going to break it all down. We'll start with the sheer scope of the empire, then look at the 3 pillars that held up its power. We'll explore what life was actually like, dive into the crisis that almost brought it all down, and finally, see how a new faith completely transformed it.
Okay, first up, an empire across continents. So before we get into the nitty-gritty, you've got to understand that Rome wasn't just one static thing. It changed a lot over its long history.
You can really think of Rome's story in 3 big acts. First, you had the Republic, which was run by the wealthy aristocrats. But we're going to focus on the next 2 acts. The early empire, also called the Principate, where a single emperor had all the power, and then the late empire, a period of wild transformation that changed everything.
Section 2, the 3 pillars of power. So how did those early emperors keep a grip on such a huge place? Well, their entire rule was this constant, really tense balancing act between 3 super powerful groups.
Okay, so the 3 main players on the board were the emperor, the big boss. Then you had the Senate, which was this holdover of old money and power from the Republic. And finally, the army, a professional, paid, fighting force whose loyalty meant absolutely everything. And let me tell you, these 3 were always in a power struggle. And this right here, this is the central political drama of the whole empire. On one side, you've got the Senate, the rich, land-owning elites who were terrified of any one person, especially a popular general, getting too much power. And they had a good reason to be scared. Because on the other side, you had the army. And the army knew this simple truth. Senators make speeches, but soldiers decide who's in charge. They were the real kingmakers, and that made them incredibly powerful and dangerously unpredictable. So that's the political chessboard. But what was it actually like for the average person living during the empire's golden age, say in the 1st and 2nd centuries? Get ready for this. At its peak, the Roman Empire had a population of around 60 million people. To put that in perspective, that's about the population of a country like the UK or Italy today, but all managed by one government with no internet, no phones, no modern tech at all. Just incredible. So how do you keep a population that huge, happy, and under control? Well, you take care of them. And the Romans were absolute masters of infrastructure. I mean, look at their aqueducts. These were mind-blowing feats of engineering, carrying fresh water for miles and miles just to keep the empire's massive cities running. And all that amazing infrastructure, it fueled a booming trade network. The Mediterranean basically became a Roman superhighway, packed with ships hauling the essentials of life: wine, wheat, and tons of olive oil. In fact, Spanish olive oil was so popular that archaeologists find pieces of its shipping jars called amphorae all over the ancient world. But we really need to be clear about something. This world of luxury, of incredible trade and engineering, was built on an incredibly brutal foundation. For every rich family you see in a mosaic, there were millions of enslaved people whose backbreaking labor powered the entire economy, working the farms, the mines, and inside the homes of the wealthy. But no empire lasts forever. In the 3rd century, that long period of peace and prosperity just shattered. The whole system was pushed right to the edge of total collapse. It's a period historians call the 3rd century crisis. So just how bad was it? Well, I want you to look at this number. 25. That's right. 25 different emperors rose to power and were overthrown in just 47 years. That's just a stunning level of chaos. It's a clear sign of the constant civil war and internal turmoil that was tearing the empire apart as different armies kept trying to put their own general on the throne.
And as if things weren't bad enough on the inside, the empire was also facing brand new, aggressive threats from the outside. In the east, the powerful Sasanian dynasty in Iran started pushing back, and in the north, different Germanic tribes began to seriously challenge the borders along the Rhine and Danube rivers. But here's the crazy part. Rome didn't just collapse and disappear. In an amazing plot twist, it was reborn. Out of all that chaos and crisis, a totally new kind of empire started to emerge.
Historians have a name for this period, late antiquity. It runs from about the 4th to the 7th centuries, and it's this incredibly fascinating era that describes the final transformation of the Roman world, defined by huge cultural and, this is the big one, religious changes. And the single biggest change came from one guy, the Emperor Constantine. In 312, he converts to Christianity. This was a radical, history-altering move. Soon after, he founded a new capital city in the east, Constantinople. And then, in less than 100 years, Christianity went from being this persecuted minority belief to the official state religion of the entire Roman Empire. Wow.
Now, it's really important to remember this didn't happen overnight. It wasn't like someone just flipped a switch. As historians say, the Christianization of the empire was a gradual and complex process. It took generations for this new faith to really spread and take root, and it often blended with the old polytheistic beliefs before replacing them.
So here's the final takeaway. While the western half of the empire did eventually break apart and become the kingdoms of medieval Europe, the eastern half, based in Constantinople, kept going for another 1,000 years. Its legacy was profound, shaping the world that came next and leaving us with one last big question to chew on. Did Rome really fall, or did it just transform and set the stage for the next 1,000 years of history?